Subscribe and press the bell icon. Hey guys, what's up? हम लोग आ गए हैं फिर से नया पॉडकास्ट पे द स्ट्रेंथ मॉबकास्ट। आज हम लोग के साथ है एक नए गेस्ट होस्ट बाला। सो बाला, इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ टू आवर ऑडियंस।
Hi, my name is Bala. I am the co-founder of Fittr, and I'm a elite coach as well on Fittr. And I've been coaching for past 5 years. I've experienced coaching with different kinds of individuals, and some of my athletes were placed in the national level competitions in the first and second places, as well as not only just bodybuilding, not only on physique athletes, but also in powerlifting. So yeah, that's about me.
Okay. So can you
So
tell
as
us
you
about
said, yeah, go ahead, Aniket.
okay? So can you tell us about the philosophy of Fitter?
Yes. So Fittr. We have a vision of transforming 50 million people, right? The intention of transforming these many people was right there with all the founding members, but it started as a Facebook group. We started as a Facebook group as a big community, and we have about 5.5 lakh people right now within that group, and all of this support. We wanted this nutrition and exercise, whatever we're doing, right, to help transform ourselves and have a healthy lifestyle. We wanted to give it for free, right? So the intention is this, where if you're looking for nutrition and exercise guidance, and if you want free knowledge, this group is there, Fitter group, as well as Fitter community. So we also have a Fitter app where you can get all the information which you need in terms of nutrition and exercise science. But if you're a very busy individual and you cannot give time for yourself in reading through all of this knowledge and making your own diet and exercise charts, we also have a coaching section. So we have 200 plus coaches who are guiding people in terms of their diet and exercises.
Okay.
So Deva, what was the question for Bala?
So as he said that he has also trained powerlifters. So what was his uh, kind of programming he gave his clients to like compete in powerlifting competitions? We would like to know that.
Interesting question, and this is people actually jump onto different kind of powerlifting programs which are there online, right? So they keep coming up with a new kind of a training program, but what they fail to understand, and most of the individuals who follow that, what they fail to understand, it's just merely changing the training variables, and we have different training variables like how many sets you're performing, and what are the different intensities at which you are performing, which means the repetition range, how many times you are performing that particular exercise. Barely these are the variables which gets changed, and these are the variables which actually influence you towards gaining strength, or gaining muscle, or whatever your goal is, right? So. Um it has to be individualized. It has to take in all of the factors wherein that individual has a specific training age, what is his current condition, is he, an experienced lifter, right? And he has good amount of strength, then the way you program the training variables has to be different. And fatigue management is another thing, right? That is one
Yeah.
thing which people fail to, introduce within their plan. And, all of these variables have to be programmed according to the goal and according to the time frame which you have before the competition, right? So ultimately, it's how much you lift and how much you move on that particular day which matters, right? Ultimately.
Yes.
So how many
So
clients of yours have like competed in nationals or any sort of legal powerlifting competition?
Good question. I don't have many of the powerlifters who competed in national levels or internationally, but I have a few who competed in regionals and state level competitions. Uh, the reason being, these are well established lifters. We're pretty much. I don't have that kind of exposure, right? I have a limited exposure. People only know me through a couple of that is Instagram and Facebook, social media platforms, and whoever knows me is looking for a goal of improving the body composition more than powerlifting. But this is the area which I'm like uh, very interested in, and I can say that I have maybe 20-25 athletes who are currently working with me, who are looking for uh, powerlifting competitions anytime soon. Currently working. Yes.
Okay. So Aniket, you're saying something.
okay, so my question to Bala was like, what type of programming do you use to train your clients?
Now, for any kind of programming, first of all, you have to understand what are the different training variables, right? So it's the exercise selection and ordering, which is the first variable, right? And if your goal is strength gains, and if you really are into powerlifting, strength is specific. So if you want to get better in squat, you have to squat. There is a very little carryover effect if you do a leg press and get strong in leg press. You might add only little in terms of strength in squat, though these are complementary exercises. But that being said, if you want to really add big numbers to squat, you have to squat. If you really want to add big numbers to your bench press, you actually have to bench press. So exercise selection, it's pretty simple if the goal is strength gains, and you really want to do it first rather than pushing it to the later part of your workout because you're fresh, you have the most performing level, so you want to give you all in the first exercise, and that is when you want to actually prioritize and keep that exercise. So ordering is also one thing, and it is pretty simple in terms of strength gains. Now, there are other exercises which might really help you push your numbers in those particular exercises which you are concentrating. If you are looking at powerlifting, we mostly are interested in squat, bench press, and deadlift, right? So these three
Yeah.
are the main lifts, and people do this mistake of, okay, if I want to gain strength in squat, bench press, deadlift, I'll only do squat, bench press, and deadlift. That's a very big mistake. There are so many stabilizer muscles. There, to put it in a simple way, let's say we are talking about bench press, right? Are you really reaching failure because of your chest muscles, or are you really reaching failure because of certain other muscles which are getting involved? Right, that is something which you have to think about and see. Let's say before my chest muscles, it's my shoulders which are failing, so there is an importance for me to train shoulders and get strong in them. So there are some additional secondary muscles which have to get stronger for you to perform better. So exercise selection in itself is not just that exercise. Of course, the complementary exercise which actually form the base and make you push heavy in those exercises. So exercise selection and ordering is one variable. The second variable is training volume. Training volume plays a major role in hypertrophy, right? So if your goal is to add muscle mass, the number of sets you perform for that particular muscle group within a session or within a week, right? They actually play a major role. But for strength, you don't really have to do so many sets, right? So you can just do a minimum number of sets per week or per session. That should be enough for you to put on strength, right? Though if you look at long-term perspective, that added muscle will obviously help you push more weights, right? But gaining strength in let's say 12 weeks, 24 weeks, or even 48 weeks of time frame, you don't really need so many sets. The third variable is training intensity, which has a very, very direct relationship to your strength, right? So if you really want to gain strength in any particular exercise, you have to train at higher intensities. Okay, so let's say I'm doing a bench press at 85% 1 RM, right? 85% of my maximum. I'll gain strength, which is going to be higher than if I would have trained at 75% of my maximum, right? Similarly, if I train at 90% of my maximum, I'm going to gain even more strength when compared to 85% of my maximum. So, training intensity and strength has a very linear relationship. So you increase the intensity, you see that strength gain is going up. But it's with the volume and intensity have to be is again directly having a relationship with your fatigue, right? So how much volume you're doing and how much intensity you're doing, these things will affect your peripheral fatigue and central fatigue levels, and this fatigue has to be managed properly. So fatigue management is something which has to be taken care. And frequency, training frequency has a major effect on strength gains. People fail to have an understanding of how frequency affects your strength gains. And more than hypertrophy, if your goal is just muscle growth, you can actually do 2 sessions per muscle per week or 3 sessions per muscle per week. But if your goal is strength gain per exercise, so if you're doing a squat, you really want to increase the frequency if you're getting stuck with your strength gains, right? Not affecting your volume. Frequency is a different variable, independent variable from training volume. So these variables, there are a set of variables which you can always play around with and see what works best for you. Of course, there is evidence, there is research which says that okay, 4 times frequency is better than 3 times frequency, or 3 times frequency is better than 2 times frequency. But ultimately, what works best for you is what you have to actually follow, for which a level of experimentation has to be done, right? So you might have to try 2 times, you might have to try 3 times or 4 times. And there are also, different exercises. With different exercises, you gain strength differently. So for bench press, you don't need very high frequency, right? If you do very high frequency, you're not going to gain strength, and in fact, you might even lose strength. But when it comes to squat or deadlift, a higher frequency can be better. So, these are different variables, right? Just play around with it, program it in such a way that it is optimal and close to your evidence levels. Experiment on a particular client for which you know that the strength gain is going to be higher than
Hello, Bala.
hello, hello.
Yeah, hello.
I lost you for the last 5 seconds. Okay. So I was saying that these are the variables which you have to set for an individual. Make that individual follow that plan for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. Keep taking the stats in terms of his lifts and his fatigue levels and how he's feeling, and of course his nutrition is going to play an important role. So let's assume nutrition is taking care. So after 4 weeks, you have to see if it is working fine or not. And if it is not, then maybe change a little bit up in one of the variables and see how it works. Right? That's how we have to program. That's how all the evidence which you're learning, you have to implement practically and see how that athlete responds for that particular training plan.
Okay,
Okay.
so I have a question for you.
Yes.
As you said, bench press doesn't need that much of frequency, and squat and deadlift needs frequency. But I have a like different approach over here, because
Mm-hmm.
deadlift can, what do you say, hinder in your recovery, because deadlift is a more taxing lift than squats and bench press. As bench press is the least taxing on your CNS as deadlifts or squats. So we believe that bench press should be done at a more higher, what do you say, frequency.
Frequency,
What's
right?
yeah? What's your
That's a
thought on
different
it?
understanding. Yes, of course, right. Of course, again, within individuals there will be differences. But that being said, uh, when I say frequency, uh, are you keeping a direct relationship with your volume? Because I'll just put it in simple terms. Let's say when we train for bench press, are we just doing 1 or 2 sets, or are we doing like 4, 5, 6 sets in that particular session? Right.
That
So
depends
that
upon the
so
Total
that
volume of set
that
as
number
well.
of sets will actually define how frequently you should go, right? So if you are having like 4, 5 sets, the frequency should not be high, right? But if you are doing like just 1 or 2 sets, then frequency can be higher, right? So that's something which you have to program along with volume. But that being said, if you look at the evidence, right? They have come across 2 to 3 different research studies, and you know, bench press kind of have a threshold effect after a certain frequency. So when I say higher frequency, I'm talking about something like 3 to 4 times per week. That's a very high frequency, right? So 3 to 4, you kind of hit a threshold. Anything beyond that, you see it's an overtraining, and you see that your overall lift is actually going down in place of maintaining or going up. So I'm not talking about normal frequencies. I'm talking about inhuman frequencies where you're almost bench pressing every day, right? So that actually has shown negative effects. But if you squat every day, right, you will gain strength faster. You will gain strength faster. Deadlift, again, we have to look at different aspects and individual CNS levels, and how you actually have, how many number of sessions you have for squat, how many number of sessions you have for bench press, and the frequency. This will also depend on how much you can actually incorporate for deadlift. So it's all correlated, right? It's all related. But if you look at independently, uh, and with the evidence available, and with some experience which I have with powerlifters, frequency of bench press can go as high as maybe 3 times per week. Anything beyond, you will definitely have negative effects, or probably just you hit a threshold and the amount of strength gains is not going to be optimal. Squat, you can go beyond 3 times.
Okay. And what about deadlift? How much? How many days
Deadlift,
will you prefer?
I also feel like it's about 3 times is the maximum. Anything beyond, it's again too CNS fatiguing, and I don't believe that a person should do consecutive sessions. Like if he's deadlifting today, he should not deadlift tomorrow. It's too
Yeah.
much for his body to take a hit.
Yeah. So if you are programming for someone who is going to compete in a powerlifting meet or is preparing for powerlifting meet, and if you prescribe him 3 days deadlift for a week, what will be the intensity for 3 days?
It's going to be different intensities, definitely. But
Yeah.
that being said, first I have to define the volume, then I'll define the intensity, right?
How will you
So,
define the volume?
right, how many number of sets is performing per session, and how many such sessions. So if I say it again, I just gave an example of 3. He might be even doing 2. I can increase it later based on individual response. But let's say he's performing best at 3, right?
Okay.
So frequency is at 3. So I'll definitely have 2 sessions at a higher intensity and one at a moderate intensity. And even within those 2 sessions, I'll have one very close to like 1 or 3 RM kind of an intensity. And again, how many reps he's leaving in the reserve, that is one of the variable which has to be taken care. But that being said, let's say that even that is taken care. 1 to 3 RM, 1 to 3 repetitions max. One session definitely,
Okay.
and
And so
yeah, the other can be like probably close to 5 RM, and one focusing on higher repetitions definitely.
okay. So all of his 3 days he will be directly squatting, or he will be using another assistant exercise like a pot squat or a negative squat or a front squat. What will be the main exercise for 3 days?
Okay. This is a very interesting, topic, and with if you have a very big schedule, if you're not just doing it for 2 months or 3 months, and you have like pretty good amount of time, you have to understand. First thing is, while he is doing that particular lift, let it be squat or bench press or deadlift, right? You have to identify what are the difficult points where throughout his motion, which phase of the motion is facing the most difficulty in finishing that repetition, right? And there are certain exercises which will definitely help him get stronger and make him move better in that particular portion of the lift, right? In that particular range of motion of the lift, and incorporating these exercises and making him gain in strength in these exercises in the first half or maybe first 60% of the training program is definitely going to help him better for the final meet. But that being said, once he gets closer and closer to the competition, it's pretty much the same lift which we will be focusing on, right? So uh, if you're looking at increasing the squat strength, right? Uh, and he has about 1 year of training, right? And I understand that at a certain amount of range of motion, maybe at the bottom part, maybe when he is trying to reach that parallel or just below the parallel, he's facing the most difficulty. I'll understand what are the troubles, and I'll also understand if he has any issues with his mobility, his biomechanical differences and issues, and what are the different stretches, what are the different complementary exercises which will help him get stronger in that particular range of motion. That is the identification phase where you actually identify what are the challenges over there and incorporate more of those exercises at different intensities so that and higher intensities so that he gains strength along with squat. Of course, he's not just doing that. Along with squat, he's going to have these sessions. So out of these 3 days, maybe you have a distributed day, 1.5 day of chest squat and 1.5 day of that complementary exercise. You do it along with squat on a single day, maybe just squats on one day and just that complementary exercise on the other day, and overall make him gain strength over the period of time, right? But as he gets more and more close, let's say he's just 2 months down the line, he has a competition, and it's about 8 weeks or 10 weeks which is left. I pretty much reduce the number of sets from those different exercises, which is helping him get stronger in the squat, and increase more number of squat sessions. Because, like I told you, strength is specific, and if you really want to add big numbers to that lift, you want to have more number of sets performing at that particular lift.
Okay. So, Vedan, what do you think about deadlifting 3 times a week or squatting 3 times a week? What's your take on this?
I mean, I think it depends on how the lifter is, their training age, and I think it also depends on their body weight and gender as well. As we have talked in the past, a male with a lower body weight can, at an intermediate state can get away with doing multiple times of squatting instead of an advanced level powerlifter who's at a higher body weight, 100 and plus, for example.
Yeah.
So I think the frequency could be individual, and as you said, we should just experiment and see what works fine for us and make changes accordingly.
Okay. So, Bala, what will be
Can
your
I add something
nutrition
to this?
protocol?
Sorry,
Okay.
before you add go to the next question, I want to add something to this. I came across one study, which was bench press study on two different genders, right, male and female,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we are talking about gender specific, and these were not like untrained individuals, but these were categorized as trained individuals. But when you look at the study, they don't have like 5 years, 6 years of experience. Just like 1.5 year of experience. What they looked at is they made them do the bench press, right? And they checked the recovery, like to reach their strength levels again. How much time did they took, right? Females actually recovered within just 4 hours, which means they can go back to the same strength levels in the bench press
Yeah.
pretty much after 4 hours. But Male
on the
is
same day.
anywhere close to 36 hours to 48 hours, right? Now
Yeah.
that's a very big variance between males itself, right? So again, gender specific, very good point which was pointed out in this discussion. So yes, individual differences does matter, and it changes to a whole different level. So you might have to experiment first, see what works, and stick to it mostly.
Okay. So my last question for powerlifting will be, what is your nutrition protocol for your clients who are competing in powerlifting meets?
Okay, fantastic question. And a lot of powerlifters actually do this thing where they keep on eating very high calories. And of course, even with the optimal training, if you're in a very super high caloric surplus, uh, these individuals are going to gain a lot of body fat, along with muscle, definitely, right? But a lot of body fat. Let me tell you, your body fat or a powerlifter's body fat is not actually helping you lift heavier weights in the gym. Okay, it's the
Yeah.
muscle, it's the motor units which are actually making you move that weight, right? So instead of focusing and getting those extra calories and trying to boost the lift for a short term, look at a long term perspective, right? And maybe a small surplus itself should be sufficient enough if you are looking for adding muscle mass, right? So that's one thing. Added muscle mass definitely is going to fetch you, help you in lifting heavier weights. But this is one type of powerlifting, right? There's other type of powerlifting where people try and fall into a weight category, a lower weight class, and try to lift heavier weights, right?
Yeah.
Things get tricky here, and things get really difficult here, right? Because you cannot be in a very high surplus, and only a very minute, maybe close to maintenance or slightly above maintenance is what people should target here. And the workout programming also have to be optimally programmed, because see, I have an individual who's a powerlifter who is 72 kilos. Right. I don't want to take the name, but he's 72 kilos right now. Right. This individual wants to play in a 65 to 70 weight category. Right. He wants to fall into that category, or even lower. Now, this guy is at probably 11-12% body fat. So he's lean. He has those visible abs, and he's a powerlifter. I cannot make him gain more weight. Okay, I cannot make him add more muscle also at this point, because he wants to play in that category. Now, in training wise, I'll not give him optimal volume for muscle hypertrophy, but I'll give him optimal volume for
Strength gain.
intensity and gaining strength, right? But in the nutrition aspect, it's pretty much close to his maintenance is what I would always look for. Okay, and he will pretty much have only maintenance calories throughout, and pretty much see how he's reflecting in terms of weight in the initial three-fourth or maybe half of the period, right? And I will have mini cuts programmed, like have mini cuts once in a while, where he is losing some amount of body weight and body fat, right? So very minute cuts, that person is not going to experience much of a performance drop, because we are going into a cutting phase. Because I'm not going to put him into a very super hypocaloric diets, very small
Hmm.
deficits, and multiple
Yeah.
such mini cuts is going to bring his weight down, right? And before the competition, uh, more of maintenance, no cuts planned, and just before the competition, like last 2 or 3 days, unlike other people who actually cut down weight and
Hmm.
incorporate strategies where they drop the calories hugely, I give them a small calorie surplus, because this is the phase where he has to perform. Cutting calories is not helping him perform the best, right? He has worked hard, he has added numbers to his weight which is lifting. Suddenly going into a calorie deficit is not going to help him there, right? If you're falling into a different category, go ahead, play in a higher category. But your performance is what matters here right now.
Yeah.
So If you're planning to get a athlete fall into a lower category, plan for mini cuts in the first half, first three-fourths of the duration. Have more of maintenance weeks and less of cut weeks. And as you get more and more close to the competition, reduce the number of mini cuts. And last, few weeks, no mini cuts. Last 1 week or last just 3 days before the competition, uh, calorie surplus is definitely going to happen.
Okay.
But
So do
in
you have
terms of
any?
individuals who are not falling into weight categories and who just wants to perform better, right? Pretty much at close to maintenance, maybe have mini cuts once in a while to drop your fat, body fat, right? Though your focus is to move numbers, once in a
Yeah.
while, that drop in body fat is going to help you when you're lighter, right? But
Yeah.
close to the competition, you really want to be in the calorie surplus for your performance to be at peak.
Yeah. So have
And
we ever gave?
I had a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So I was
let's say
asking him.
let's say you are approached with a client who is at a higher body weight, who is not really competing but is at a higher body weight, and they want to lose weight
Hmm.
and they want to maintain their strength. So in
Yes.
that scenario, it could be tricky, but how would you program and set the nutrition guidelines for that person?
I'll give you simple pointers for this. Okay. You want to maintain your strength. You want to cut down the body fat. First and foremost thing, never go for a very very fast drastic cut. Right. Have a long term cut. Right. Second, so of course the first point covers small calorie deficit. Right. If you were taking let's say 1.5 grams per kg of body weight per day of protein per day, right? Earlier. Now that you're getting into calorie deficit and there is a risk of losing lean tissue, lean muscle mass, up your protein up, up your protein intake. Okay, bring it up to 1.8 or even 2 grams per kg of body weight per day. Right, that's the protein guidelines because protein is muscle sparing. You really want to have more protein. Okay. The third guideline and one of the most important guideline which people did not establish so far is protein distribution, right? So let's say I'm a guy who's supposed to have 160 grams of protein. I'll not have a meal which has 80 grams or 70 grams of protein, right? You pretty much want to distribute equally among like 4 meals. It's intermittent fasting. Definitely, intermittent fasting is like not good at all. Okay, if your goal is lifting pretty much heavy weights, have like 4 good meals across the day, spaced like 3 to 5 hours between meals, and almost have 40 grams. If my total intake is if that athlete's total intake is 160 grams of protein per day, you pretty much want to have like 40, 40, 40, 40. If you're not getting like 40, if you're getting in 30 and another meal is getting 45 and 45, that is fine. But this is nonsense. If you're getting like 10 grams of protein in breakfast and you're getting like 60 grams of protein in lunch, it's not going to help you. Okay. So
Yeah.
protein distribution is one thing. This is on nutritional aspects, right? Now coming to the training aspects, if you were having a training program which was helping you get stronger in a caloric surplus, is the same training plan which is also going to help you retain that strength when you're in a calorie deficit. Okay, so it's simple. You really want to program your training variables in such a way that it will help you gain strength. But because you are in a caloric deficit, maybe that strength performance or you moving that numbers upward is not going to go up so drastically, or maybe just stay at those strength levels itself. So training wise, pretty much not different. It's just that you can expect that the numbers are not going to move drastically upward. So
Hmm.
these are the guidelines if you're going for a cut.
Okay.
Devas, so you had any questions?
Yeah. So I was going to ask him about water cuts. Has he ever given any of his client water cuts for meat or something like that?
Okay, very good question, and I want to really point this out. Actually, this was not in a powerlifting competition, but it was in the boxing competition. So I was fortunate enough. I actually got an opportunity to train the National Boxing Academy for our Indian athletes who were competing internationally, representing India. So they were incorporating water cuts earlier, and it all depends on how much drop of hydration which you are seeing, right? Let it be boxing, let it be powerlifting, right? Even in powerlifting aspects, I've looked at the evidence, I've looked at the studies, and water cuts have shown some detrimental effect on performance, given that how much of that water cut is, right? If it's a very small water cut, right? If it's not drastic, then it is fine, right? If it's helping you meet that weight category for a short span, and if that weighing thing is done, and you have a larger time between the lift and your weighing, then you got more time to hydrate yourself again, right? So in those cases, maybe you can have and incorporate water cuts, but this needs a lot of careful programming, a lot of variables which have to be taken in care, and how much time is there between your weigh-in and the competition. Then only incorporate water cuts. But if you're a athlete who doesn't have much of a time between that, and you don't really have so much knowledge, then I would say ditch your water cuts and pretty much lose weight in terms of body fat. Have a lose weight first and during your prep itself, rather than pushing your weight loss into the end of the competition. Be prepared from first, right?
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do.
And do you think the water cuts which are involved in physique athletes or bodybuilding athletes, how different is it from the one in powerlifting meets?
It's definitely different, right? So for a physique or bodybuilding athlete, it is looking best on the stage, right? We're least concerned about if he's seeing a performance drop, right?
Hmm.
We're not analyzing how much is squatting or benching on the stage, if he's a physique or a bodybuilding athlete. In those cases, water cuts may be different, right? And again, even within that, there's a lot of controversy between individuals. Some of the individuals believe cutting water can be really beneficial. I'm a guy who actually gives more water before competition, unlike others. But that being said, it's totally a different game. Bodybuilding and powerlifting is a different game, right? And water cuts can be, it should be different because the goal is different. It's just that you do a very big cut in water, you will definitely see performance drop. And this performance drop is not going to affect a physique or a bodybuilding athlete, right? What is more concerned about is how dry, how big, and how aesthetically looking he is on that stage, right? But for a powerlifter, performance does matter, and cutting out water drastically is definitely going to see a drop in performance, right? So it has to be carefully programmed, right? Water cuts are like a big no for, I would say, should be done carefully, or a big no for a powerlifter. Can be done in physique or bodybuilding athletes.
And for a powerlifting athlete who competes in a weight category, for example,
Hmm.
let's say you're a 66 kg category guy, he is close to 67 kg category, 67 kg all year round. So would you suggest him to be at a lower body weight than his weight category throughout the year?
That's the best thing you can do, right? So you are at 67, 68 kilos. You want to be 66, close to your competition. I would probably have him get to 65 or 64.5 before the competition, like 1 month before the competition, so that he's not going for a water cut, which will of course have a decrement in his performance. He will not go into a caloric deficit trying to lose fat in the last minute, which will again have a decrement in his performance, or maybe no increment in the performance. So definitely make the athlete be prepared well ahead before the competition, rather than rushing out things in the last minute and bringing his performance levels lower.
Hmm.
Makes sense.
And do you think it is easy to go up a category or go down a category?
Now,
because sometimes
that's a
because
very good question. Actually, you have categories like give me an example of a weight categories, right?
there are
What you
66
have come across?
in
66. And
men's
what is
there
the
are
next weight category?
in men's there are 53 kg category, 59, 66,
59,
74,
66, 74,
83,
83.
93,
Yes. So if you
105.
notice, the difference is about 8 to 9 kilos between the
Yeah.
categories, right?
Hmm.
This can be defining, right? This can be different. A person who's lifting 55 kg, 50, who is 55 kilos, and a person who is in the 83 kilos, right? Of course, the amount of weights they are going to lift is going to be drastically different, right? And you have a category. You're in between categories, let's say, right?
Hmm.
You are pretty much in the higher end, but you want to in a higher category, but in the lower end of the higher category. You want to move to the lower category, even if you fall into a higher end, right?
Hmm.
You might be having a guy on the higher end of this category who is much more heavier,
Hmm.
who will definitely move much more heavier weights, right?
Hmm.
So you really don't want to compete in this category because you cannot beat that guy. In
Hmm.
that case, plan well ahead, fall into a lower category. Even if you stay in the upper end of the that category weight, maybe last two kilos. Let's say 83 kilos is the category, right? It's
Hmm.
okay to be like in between 81 to 83, right? So I would say stay close to 81 so that before competition, even if you are in a caloric surplus, and there might be some weight gains, that is taken care of. But you have to analyze who is competing, and you have to analyze between categories how much is the difference, right? If it's like 4 kgs 5 kgs between the categories, then that's not something which we really have to worry about. But if the categories are like 9 kilos and 9 kilos, right?
Hmm.
There's a guy at 72 and there's a guy at 81 in the same category. So definitely a difficult situation for that athlete.
Athlete.
So yeah, that pretty
And
much answers.
yeah, and I think it is pretty evident that since height dictates our weight category as well. So let's say you
Yeah.
have an athlete who let's say who is 5'4" or 5'6", and the average weight category is around that, could be 59, 66, and 74 to the upper end. And let's say the person has achieved 10% body fat, but he still wants to go down in weight so that he can compete at a lower body weight. So how would you approach the situation?
First of all, you have to look at that guy's current condition. Is he having body fat or not? Right?
Hmm.
Is he on the like upper end of the body fat? Say if he's like 20% body fat or 25% body fat, we have a big window. We can further reduce him. You know, I'm talking about not last minute changes. Of course, if you have good long period of time, you
Yeah.
have a very big scope of bringing his weight down very slowly in such a way that his performance is not affecting much, and you can make him drop weights, even if it's not right. So more than height, it is the measure is body fat percentage, right? But if that individual is lean, let's say, right, it is like 12%, 13%, 14% body fat,
Hmm.
right? There's not much scope of making that athlete to lose weight further, right? Because there is not much fat left in his body, and making him lose muscle is definitely you're reducing the lifting capacity of that
Yeah.
individual, right? So more than the height, I would say it's the body fat percentage and what is the allowance we have for that individual to fall into a weight category. And based on that, defining a weight category can be a beneficial measure rather than height.
Hmm. This was a great answer to this question.
Thanks.
So Deva, you have other questions regarding to coaching?
Yeah, so we can move ahead with the questions we have. So the question will be how to become a better coach in fitness industry.
Very good question. And actually, I got this question recently from one of my scholars. So it's a good question, right? In this field I have a lot of coaches who I personally know, right? I can easily say that the coaches who have the most knowledge are not always the most successful coaches, because you are in a service industry, right? It's not the knowledge which is selling; it's the care, it's the amount of knowledge amount of information you get from the client, and how optimally you're programming those plans, getting results, but also having that connect, also giving a clarity, also giving a report of what our goals are, setting goals per the time period, and trying to achieve those goals, right? If See, I also take care of IT for my firm, so we have a certain deadlines for certain releases, right? We try and reach those deadlines, right? So let's say I have certain set of features which needs 6 weeks of development, and maybe 2 weeks of testing. So that's about 8 weeks. I have to meet that deadline and give out new features within my product, right? So similarly, you have a coach, you have a client who is enrolled with you for 12 weeks or 16 weeks or 24 weeks, whatever duration it is. Have specific goals. The main goal has to be divided into small mini goals. Set up different timelines for it, right? And try and achieve those timelines. When you do that, right, along with that particular client, you both are a team here, right? You are guiding that person, and that person is actually following you and trying to reach those deadlines. You both have become a team now. You both are working together towards a singular goal. Now, this makes a great coach, right? Rather than just giving a diet chart or an exercise plan and asking to just follow it.
Hmm.
Having little to no compassion towards if he's actually doing it or not, if you're not really checking on him, if he is having any difficulties, then you both are not working together, right, in achieving that similar goal. So I always believe, if you have a client, you both are a team working towards a specific goal. Work together, always communicate, always take in feedback from that individual. Make sure that diet and workout, whatever you're prescribing to that individual, is comfortable for him to follow, right? You're not giving him insane kind of a diet where you're asking like, have 200 grams of boiled chicken. Insane, right? He will follow it
Yeah.
for a week. He will follow it for, maybe it is very, very motivated and dedicated. He will do it for a couple of months. Then he's going to give it up, right? So a lot of feedback has to be taken care. A lot of communication has to be there, and they both together have to follow, work together in achieving that similar goal.
And
This
let's
makes
say
an
the
individual a great coach.
and how would you work in a condition where, let's say, the client you have is not very compliant with you? Let's say he is very busy, and because of that, he can't, give you updates of how many calories he consumed or what exercise he did. Because
Okay.
we can work with a variety of clients, and most of them could be working.
Okay. So I have an experience of coaching more than 1,000 clients officially. There is unofficially, the number is way high. So I've actually worked with different kinds of clients so far. And I have a pretty big chunk of clients who actually don't have much of time to, look after, calories tracking, macros tracking, and all that stuff, right? So it's the first communication which you establish with the client which plays a major role, and also the communications further, right? So you have to understand and make him realize what is important. He has come to you, enrolled with you for a certain goal. Make him understand that goal is very important to reach. It's not just important for him, it's also important for you, right? So make him feel like he's not just working for himself, he's also working for you, right? Because this is one of the things which I did with one of the clients, right? I actually did it for more number of clients, but I'm just giving you this example because this recently happened. I told him that he's not compliant. He's not just doing it, accurately. So I told him that, I have a certain reputation, right? I have worked with certain number of clients. I have so many success stories. I have a certain reputation now, right? I don't want to ruin my reputation, right? So you might be busy, right? Let's work together. Let's make it comfortable, right? If you cannot track calories on a daily basis, if you cannot track macros on a daily basis, I'll make a fixed chart which is comfortable for you to follow the pretty much same thing every day for the next 7 days. Then we'll update again, right? Then we'll make changes, take a call maybe once in a week or once in 2 weeks, take your updates on specific foods and make changes there. Till then, follow the same diet. If you cannot really experiment, have different kinds of foods and stuff like that. If you're traveling, if you don't have access to measuring food and stuff, first of all, if you're traveling for just for one day, it's very easy. You prepare your meals beforehand, have them packed, you can have it. That shouldn't be a problem. But if you're traveling for let's say 3 days, 1 week, then specific set of guidelines, following ad libitum dieting, keeping your protein intake way higher than what you actually take, and pushing your calories slightly lower. So, food choices, making food choices optimally in such a way that the calories are not exceeding, but the protein is not decreasing. That is going to help. So, giving out this kind of information once and together in written form as well as oral form, right? Not just talking on phone, but also putting it on email and sending it as instructions is really going to help them, uh, follow that particular thing consistently, right? So ultimately, I feel
Bala,
it's the consistency which makes sense. Yeah,
hello, Bala.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
a doubt over here. As we said, like counting calories is difficult while traveling. How can we track that macros, like calories and macros while traveling?
Very good question. I actually have a lot of clients who keep traveling on a regular basis, right? So these are my instructions which I generally give to my paid clients who travel on a regular basis. You can really be accurate with the calories and macros if you are at home, right? But you cannot keep holding your kitchen weighing scale wherever you go, right? In those cases, I suggest only try and get protein sources in all of your meals, right? Rather than having like a pizza which has protein, fats, and carbs, choose like something like a grilled chicken, choose like something like eggs, choose like paneer, where you get major chunk of protein, right? If the goal is 150, try and get 180 grams of protein on that day, right? But avoid rest of the food, right? Avoid like all the complementary things. If you're going and getting it cooked in a hotel, tell him specifically that he should use less oil or minimal oil, right? That will push the fat intake to a lower end. uh, you pretty much know at the end of the day if you had less calories or no, right? Based on that, you can choose to have some carbs or avoid it, right? So this kind of background information and educating that particular client is very important. Telling them the importance of protein and getting higher protein, right, while traveling more than what he generally takes, and trying to keeping those calories lower. But if he's feeling hungry, right, rather than picking anything and everything which is available visibly, go with food choices, something like a fruit which is more satiating, like a large apple, which gives you about 80 or 100 calories, but it's just few calories. But you have a large apple, you don't feel hungry after that, right? So making some good food choices which is going to sustain him. These are the instructions which I generally give to my clients. So pushing the protein up, pushing the calories down more than what he generally does. Even if there is an excess oil which is used while cooking, and even if he did not notice that, is not falling into a very big caloric surplus.
And
Yeah.
one more question from my side. Do you think becoming a full-time coach makes a person like a good coach in the long run?
Very good question. It's again individualistic, right? But I've seen some individuals who were doing both jobs as coaching as well as one of the firms, can be IT. Maybe he was working for an IT firm, but it's just one person. It's not just one person. I've come across a lot of individuals who gave up on their career and moved completely into a fitness career. and out of those, maybe 60 to 70% have improved their services, have improved working on becoming more visible to the crowd by improving their marketing skills, right? And spent more time on reading and enhancing their knowledge. So they definitely improved, right? Their overall client base also improved, but there are also individuals who actually gave up on their other job because they wanted to improve their fitness career, but they just left that job. They did not put additional efforts towards their career, that fitness career. They did not see any improvement. So it ultimately depends on how much time is available. So if I can actually manage my job and give a very good amount of time for my fitness career, I will definitely improve. But if my schedule does not allow me to choose both the jobs, and if I have to choose only one job, sure.
which is related to last topic. Okay. So as we know, online coaching is becoming a big thing nowadays. How will you market yourself to get more clients on social media?
Okay, that's a good question actually, and this is what we've been doing a lot these days, right? So there are platforms which actually provide you online coaching, just like Fittr, right? Fittr is the biggest platform, online platform in India, which offers online coaching. But there are also individual online coaches who are not a part of any platform. The ultimate, way to showcase and reach out to more crowd is being more socially visible, right? So you have different platforms, make use of that, right? So not just stick to Facebook, not just stick to Instagram, or not just stick to Twitter. You have many more platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok. You know, how much ever stupid it sounds, you still have a lot of viewership from different platforms of different people, right? Keep putting content. Let people know what you're doing. Okay, showcase your success stories. Showcase, all of the knowledge which you got in this field. Showcase what you are doing on a regular basis as a part of your fitness regime, right? And these are the things, right, which will make you feel like, okay, people are going to look at it more and more often. They're going to keep sharing if you're sharing good amount of knowledge. It's not like a secret, right? So don't look at it like, if you're an online coach, okay, you should have your trade secrets within yourself. It's not like that. Okay, whatever knowledge you have, keep sharing it. Keep sharing it over and over and over and over again, so that there will be a lot of people who will have trust on you, who will place their trust that, okay, this guy knows stuff. So if I actually go ahead and enroll with them, I can expect results from it, right? If you are stuck in choosing between two different online coaches, right, uh, who will you choose ultimately? It's the one which has more success stories, and it's the one who chooses to share more and more knowledge on their social handles in this particular field. So you keep doing that, right? And people who are consuming that information will also share that information across. They will also refer to a lot of people around them, right? There might be some people who will not, but there will be some people who will definitely. And your initial few clients, not just initial, you try and make sure that you're giving the best results possible for every client, right? This is the one major secret we have as a platform. It's not just me as a coach on the platform, it's all of the coaches on our platform. What we do is we consistently give them results. Okay. Now, if that individual chooses to share where he's getting those results from or not choose, right? Ultimately, people around him or people around her are going to notice major changes happening in their physique, right? They are transforming. People are going to notice that. And if that individual mentions somewhere that, oh, I was coached by so and so individual, and this individual is responsible for my transformation. You know, even if 10 people know out of that, right? So even if she shares this information with 10 different people, and even if three of them or four of them enrolls with you, right? It's only a chain reaction. Those four are going to get you even more clients, right? So that's the thing, right? Few tips here. Make use of all of the platforms. Don't just stick to one or two social media platforms. Two, keep giving free information, right? Three, give consistent results and good results for clients. Not just making them happy, but also make sure people around them are going to notice results in that particular individual. This is
Yeah,
going to, give you major exposure to the large crowd.
yeah. So I have one another question related to Fittr. So
Yes.
how can we become a Fittr coach and earn good amount of money through you?
Okay. Good question again. So we started as a platform where we just knew knowledge, right? There was no formal education. But right now, see, we incorporate a certain set of philosophies and certain ways of dieting and training, right? Of course, it's not rigid way. There are multiple ways, but we also give a lot of evidence-based nutrition. There is a lot we teach our scholars in terms of quantified nutrition because this is the most efficient way to getting results, right? So all of this knowledge, right? Whoever wants to be a coach within our platform, we want to give all of this knowledge to these individuals so that they are well equipped with this knowledge and they are, ready to take on clients and give them a proper direction, right? So for that reason, we have an institute created. That's what I mentioned earlier, Institute of Nutrition and Fitness Sciences, right? So infs.co.in is the website. So we have our courses over there, Foundation and Expert, right? We make sure that individuals who pass through that course have all of the knowledge and all of the methods and all of the evidence-based strategies which we incorporate. So that individual is going to learn about nutrition sciences and exercise sciences in such a way that he can practically apply those theoretical concepts and make diet chart and training plans in such a way that the goals are met with these particular strategies, right?
Yeah,
So all of this information is there on our institute. So someone who's passing through that institute, right? So it's already, as soon as we get the passing list, we as a fitter company, we reach out to those individuals, scheduling an interview, asking them if they're interested in taking on coaching. And if they are interested, we schedule interviews. They'll go through a very small interview process just to not just testing nutrition and exercise science, but also on their communication skills and client handling skills. Because being an online coach, it's a lot of talking between you and your client, right? So
yeah,
we understand this is also an important thing. So we do a small round of interviews, one or two rounds of interviews, and if they're selected, they'll be onboarded as an fitter coach. And
okay,
then we have a induction kind of a program where we give all of the details about how the organization runs, how you should be, starting with your clients and everything, all the
hmm,
methods which we incorporate as a part of coaching.
yeah. So I have one another question related to last question. So is it necessary to look good to be shredded to start as a Fittr coach?
Now, good question. This is one of the most common questions we get as a fitter company, right? But
Yeah, because
it's not
what
necessary.
I have
If you
seen
look
is,
at the whole panel,
yeah.
sorry,
So because
go
what,
ahead.
yeah, because I've seen that most of the clients usually try to get coach who look good, who have good physique. So is there anything like that in a Fittr what company that their coach should look in a good shape year around and they should have like shredded abs and all stuff?
Good question, actually. Yeah. So we don't believe that you should have abs altogether, but we also believe that you cannot be like unfit and set out a very bad example towards your clients, right?
Yeah,
So as long as you feel that you can present yourself as a coach, as long as you're fit enough to showcase yourself as a coach, right? Because you're a guide, you're a leader here, right? So you're setting an example to your clients. You cannot be unfit and set an example, right? So that's what we believe. but it's not mandatory that you should have abs and stuff. But as long as you're physically fit and you can present yourself as a coach, that is good enough. That is good enough. And you don't
Okay.
have to look pretty and stuff. We have you should actually go through our platform. We're normal Indian individuals, right? We're not fit
Yeah.
models who look like you know looking too beautiful and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question over here.
Sure.
So, what do you mean by fit? Like, there's different definition for fit in every fitness industry, powerlifting, physique, because uh, remaining under a certain body fat percentage, it's also not fit. Consider it's like not good to remain under like 10% body weight, 10% body fat. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about individuals who are like 25% body fat,
Hmm.
20% body fat. That's definitely something where you're pushing on the higher end. You really want to get lower. But fitness is an umbrella term which has four components within it, right? So if you look at four components, that's the uh, like body composition is one thing, right? Muscular strength is second thing, muscular endurance is the third thing, and the fourth one is the cardiovascular endurance. Definitely, right? These are the four components. There was a fifth component, but it's not the fifth component is not a part of fitness anymore. That is flexibility, right? So out of those, what are the things which you can actually showcase, right? I personally feel you should be fit in all of these four components, but you cannot really showcase your muscular endurance in your, when you present yourself as a coach. You really have to perform and showcase, right? You should have all of these four, but the most important is, you also have to showcase and tell people that you are fit. And body composition is one of the things which you can easily present as a physique when you are on the online platform or anywhere. Again, not compulsory that you have to have shredded abs, right? You can be strong. We have powerlifters on our platform who are on slightly higher body fat percentages, right? If you go through our platform in the coaching section, there are some excellent coaches who are powerlifters who are on the higher end of body fat percentages, but they're still part of the team.
Nice.
So, yeah, I think that should answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Vedant, do you have any questions regarding this?
Yeah, so how as a freelance coach can one flourish in this industry, and how long can it get to let them become a renowned coach?
Very good question again. If you look at me, you're more looking as a platform-based coach, but I'm more like a freelance coach as well because being one of the founding members, right? So
Hmm.
what I would say is be in this field, be consistent, right? The more consistently you train individuals, right, the more success stories you'll get, and the more success stories you get, the more clients you get again. So it's a complete, cycle-based program, right? You keep sharing knowledge again. Of course, you want to get that visibility, right? But get more clients, transform them. Once you transform, those transformed clients will get even more clients. So this
Hmm.
will be a cycle. This will be a continuous chain reaction, and there will be more and more individuals coming in, right? So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's the reach which you are actually looking for. The more reach you have, the sorry, I got a call. So the more reach you have, the more successful stories you will get at some point, and the more people will know about you. That's how you flourish in this particular field, right? Even
And
with
I think,
experience, of course, even with experience, even with more and more success stories, people actually increase their package charges and stuff like that, which is fine,
hmm.
right? You get more experience, you have more knowledge, your time becomes more valuable, right? So that's how it works.
Okay.
And if you see the Instagram feed right now, I think people are more attracted towards accounts who post more infographics, post kind of things. For example, they'll show a chart and they'll show, for example, a nutritional pyramid. I think when you show people complex subjects in simple manner, they tend to learn more and are attracted more towards it.
Yes. So even if you notice my Instagram,
Yeah,
I actually go through even more technical research studies. But it's not only about understanding that research. It's also about you being able to
implement it.
make other people understand that, right? And that research which you are consuming might not be easy for a normal individual to consume, right? Because you've been in this field, you know actual terms, you know what are subject variables, measurement methods, what could be the limitations, what are the different kinds of researches, right? Which ones are more reliable and which ones are not, right? So you have that knowledge, but once you consumed it, how well you present it and how well you communicate with your followers is very important. And that is something which has shown a lot of influx in terms of followers on my account too. And I've been able to give out a lot of information, and I think that is one of the reasons I'm on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just about consuming information; it's also about presenting it in the most simplest form. It's,
Mm.
and that will definitely attract more people because they're understanding what you're telling, right?
Yeah.
That's very important.
So,
Yeah.
what are your current future goals for the company and individually as well?
Yeah, so we recently got funding through Sequoia Capital, and sorry, I got a call. So we have the app. We have a certain amount of consumers, and we keep getting a certain number of clients. But we feel we are only exposed to a very small population of India, right? And there is a larger chunk of people who don't know Fitter yet, right? So our intention is to reach out to more people and make sure that Fitter is more visible to a lot of people. And once they get to know about Fitter, they start using Fitter, will be really helpful in reaching our vision, right? Our vision is to reach out to 50 million people and make them fit, right? Let it be paid program, let it be free program. It doesn't really matter for us because we're not someone who is struggling financially, but we have a common goal of making people fit and healthy. That's the major goal, right?
Right.
Right. So, our main intention is right now is to get that visibility and reach out to more and more people and let them know that there is something called Fitter, where
Mm.
you actually can transform, right? So either you put efforts or money, both ways, you will get results.
Yeah. So I have the last question. Then we will end the podcast. So the last question will be, working with Fitter, can that coach work with his offline clients as well?
Good question. Now, when you're working as a fitter coach, right? Uh, if you're doing a personal training, we do allow personal training, right? So there are a lot of
Yeah.
personal trainers who are also a part of the fitter team right now. So they do a
Yeah.
personal training, but all the nutrition and diet chart aspects, we want them to, keep it with fitter only because we strongly believe that a individual, a coach can handle a certain number of clients only, and anything
Yeah.
more will affect the quality of the services, right? So
Okay.
if you look at our platform as well, we only give a limited number of slots per month for all the coaches because we have tested it, we have tried it out, and having more
Yeah.
and more clients is not the best way to do it, right?
Okay.
Instead, give have only certain number of clients so that you give most of your time for them and working towards their goal rather than having more number of clients where you can give only very little time for each client and degrading your services. So we really
What's
feel
the
that as long as it's nutrition, diet charts, and all of that, we wanted to keep it only on Fitter. But if you're a personal trainer, then and you're just training that individual in person on the gym floor, then that's an additional thing which you can keep doing.
Okay. And what's the process of getting clients through Fittr? Like if he's a Fittr coach, like if like where I train, the usually I can get clients through the decks also, and I can convert the people around me in the gym to get coached under me. So is there any procedure like that on the Fittr company where
Okay.
you give
Now, Fittr
client?
as a company, now Fittr as a
Yeah,
company is very popular right now, and we have a lot of people who are looking at this platform, right? So
yeah,
if you look at that company, if you and look at any coach within that, the coach is never bigger than the company, right?
yeah,
So being there on on the platform and having good reviews and testimonials and success stories is very
yeah,
important. Okay, people
yeah,
might not know you, but a lot of people come on Fittr because they know about Fittr, and then they look at different coaches and see who works, who might be the best coach for you, right? So
yeah,
just being there on the platform is going to get the major chunk of clients. And
yeah,
of course, if you are interested in training specific clients who are around you or who don't know about Fittr, you can just let them know that there is a platform called Fittr on which I'm coaching individuals. You can just go
mm,
on that and enroll with yourself, enroll with you, and that should be good. But with whatever experience I have, with whatever I've seen, you know, 99% of your clients are not the people who you are converting around you. It's mostly because you're there on the platform and you have some success stories. That's why you're getting clients. You don't even know your client before enrolling. So you will see
okay,
that, okay, someone has enrolled with you, then you get the contact details of that individual, then you talk for the first time with that individual. That's how it works.
okay, okay. So Vedant, it's a good time to end the podcast. We have covered all of the questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Bala, where can we find you and get in touch with you if anyone watching this podcast wants to get coached by you or anyone through Fittr? What will be the
Okay.
procedure?
So if you are interested, if anyone who is watching this podcast, if you're interested in my coaching, you can go to fitter.com, right? And go under the coaching section, you can find the profile. But if you want to have an interaction before enrolling, my Instagram ID is bala.squats, BALA.squats. I believe that along with this podcast, we'll be putting my Instagram link. So,
Yeah,
if you go on my profile and you can DM me, and we can have a quick chat, understand your goals, and then we can go on with the coaching.
sure. Okay. So Vedant, anything else?
No, I think I'm done with the questions, and it was a great podcast. I think we got to learn a lot about how to be a better coach.
Yeah.
And thanks for
Listening
coming on the
from the director of the company, which is very famous in India, it was a pleasure to actually like speak with you and understand
Thank
how
you,
you
guys.
actually
I
develop.
sure.
Yeah,
So I personally feel, I'm also thankful for calling me to your podcast and letting me give a lot of information about my company. So that's great, and I hope we reach more people along, through this podcast also, letting people know that we have something called Fitter, and you can actually transform yourself. So, if you're interested, just go on Fitter. Or there are a lot of free resources. You can just go through all of the free information, and you can actually transform yourself without any coaching. So I always promote that, first you have to put your efforts on your own, try and reach your goals with your efforts rather than enrolling with a coach. But if it doesn't work, then go for coaching.
yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
But
Bala, for
thank you
being
so
here.
much, guys. Thank you for calling me on your podcast. Yes,
yeah.
You've been a
been pleasure.
great guest. So take care, guys. Stay strong. Sada strong raho. Peace out.
Thank you.